All right. Welcome once again to the Faces of Business. I am your host, Damon Pistolka, and I am so excited for our guest today because we have a repeat offender. Angela Thurman is back again. Angela, thanks for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Damon. Thank you for having me again.
Yes, and today with Angela, we're going to be talking about project management in regulated manufacturing, specifically around compliance and efficiency. So, Angela, we always like to start out with learning a bit about the person. And
Mhm.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, how that relates to project management, and what you're up to today?
Okay, I'd love to. So, I am an electrical engineer. Um, I went to college in my hometown, this tiny little town in Northwest Arkansas. And um, immediately after graduation, I went to work for NASA. And it's not like one of the NASAs that everybody knows about. I went to work for what was then known as NASA Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. So, being a good Southern girl from Arkansas, I, of course, went to work for the only NASA facility north of the Mason Dixon line.
Yeah.
And um, that facility is now known as NASA Glenn. And it's actually one of the oldest NASA facilities. It was actually a NACA, the National Advisory Council on Aviation,
Wow.
before NASA even existed. So,
Hmm.
a very long and storied history. Um, and the reason that I went to NASA Lewis is because they had the program for the power management for the space station. So this is before the space station even existed. It was in planning and development at that time.
Okay.
And with my background, uh, they selected me. So because um, NASA Lewis or NASA Glenn is located in Cleveland, um, Berea, there in Berea, there's Baldwin Wallace College, and that's where Dr. Harold Kersner was teaching at the time. And Dr. Kersner is recognized around the world as one of the leading um, thought leaders um, on project management. In fact, he was one of the very first people to help bring about the development of the Project Management Institute. And he's written a ton of books on project management. And so NASA would bring Dr. Kersner into the lab to
Wow.
teach project management theory to all of the engineers, including me. So very early in my career, I had that benefit of actually learning project management from Dr. Kersner. And of course,
Wow.
at the time, I didn't realize how you know how that would affect my career going forward. But it really, really was a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's how I got into project management.
Yes. Well, and you've had throughout your career, I mean, you've had some pretty large projects that you've managed, and it does take a tremendous amount of organization to do that. Just
Yes.
drop a couple highlights and some of the things that you did, and then where you're at today, what you're helping people
Sure,
with
sure.
today.
So, in the mid 90s, I worked for a telecommunications company called Williams Telecommunications. And I did all different phases of planning, as well as the project engineering for a company that, for example, we built a brand new fiber optic route from Houston to Washington D.C. Um, but we had network all across the United States, and And I even helped with the coordination of trade agreements between Williams and, say, British Telecom.
Hmm.
Um, so that involved a lot of communications equipment, which we at that time we purchased from Northern Telecom or Nortel. Um, and so I helped to uh, manage the overall procurement of $2.5 billion of Nortel equipment.
That's a bit.
That was a bit. In fact, we all got these fancy pens. Nortel gave us these Waterman pens
Nice.
when that contract was signed.
Very
Of
good.
course, that was over a very long period. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, tomorrow we're going to take delivery.
Yeah.
But tracking things like you might not think about it, but here's this this I'm just going to say piece of equipment, and but if you don't have the cables to connect it,
Mm-hmm.
this $100,000 piece of equipment is useless to the network.
Yeah.
So I would have to do follow up with my Nortel contact to say, this is not complete. The delivery is not complete. And therefore, I'm imposing penalties and I get a rebate until it is delivered complete. So until I get those cables, the clock is ticking and I want my rebate.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Not
and
on,
that's
not on the price of the cables, on
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's important in these large projects
Oh,
because
yes.
one thing affects another, affects another, and affects another.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you're talking about multi-year projects like that, it's a huge thing. And then when you look at compliance and you're talking about the delivery of cables, that's a good example of efficiency, because if items don't come there as planned, it
Mhm.
affects everything else and it throws your efficiencies off.
Right. If you don't, if I've got a crew that is installing, this site, because you literally had to build the facility and
Mm-hmm.
get power and, everything set up. And so if we were delayed because we were missing a set of cables for that transmission equipment,
Mm-hmm.
then the next site would be delayed, and it just
Yeah.
was a compounding effect.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure. So as you're working through your career, what are and getting to today, what are some of the things that you're seeing common across industries? Because you've got experience in several different industries. What are
Yeah.
some of the things that you see when you look at these long-term projects
Mhm.
that they have in common?
Development always takes longer than you expect. There are going to be delays, because, for one thing, the requirements at the beginning can be very um, loose. I mean, we think we know what we want, but as we get more information, the requirements change. And that's one of the reasons why agile project management has become more and more popular in recent years. And so as those requirements solidify, you'll see a lot of engineering change orders submitted. Costs will escalate because you may have begun to procure materials only to find out that there's a change order and now you need something else. And then the material that you did procure is scrapped.
Yeah.
So there's that kind of thing. Also, certainly, and this goes to part of our topic today, the various governing bodies, whatever type of certifying bodies, or like whether it's the FCC if you're in communications, or it's the FAA if you're in aviation, or EASA if you're in European aviation, or any other group that might have a say so in
Mm-hmm.
how this product is going to be marketed and whether it's safe and so forth. They can make up completely new rules halfway through the
Oh,
project, or even at the very end, or after it's brought into the marketplace. So you never know when there might be a new rule that comes up that you'll have to address,
yes.
and
Because
you have
like
to
when you're,
constantly be watching that, monitoring.
yeah, because when you're in the long-term development, that's a huge thing. You never think about that, but you could be halfway through developing something, and they say, "Well, this happened, and now we need to change our specifications."
Exactly. And
And
it could be all kinds of things, like, does this product produce noise? You know, because most people don't think about that, but for a pilot that's on a long haul flight, every little thing that impacts their comfort
mm-hmm.
um, increases their workload. So if it's physical discomfort, if it's noise or lights or anything like that, it can disrupt their attention span. And we certainly don't want that to happen in an airplane.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. You want to be able to fly without interruption.
Yes.
So when you're talking about the, so let's talk a little bit about what you're helping today in your current role,
Oh,
helping do
certainly.
today. Yeah.
So, as of April the 1st, I recently took a new corporate role with a company called Macrofab, and located here in Houston, a remarkable company. It's a um, smaller than the companies I've been working for
Yeah.
anyway. and and they produce. They're really a technology company, but the thing that they manufacture is printed circuit boards and printed circuit board assemblies.
Okay.
And they've got um, really a revolutionary um, method, because I
Okay.
mean, if you need a printed circuit board next week, you can go onto the Macrofab platform, and really it's a software
Mm-hmm.
tool, and put in your information, your requirements, load up your specs, how many, um, um, add all of your design information, put in your credit card number, and it'll be delivered.
Oh, wow.
It really is amazing to me.
Yeah.
And so I'm working as a program manager for Macrofab, um, specifically for our factory network,
Mm-hmm.
um, throughout throughout the globe, but focus primarily the in North America.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all of our partners throughout not only the U.S. but Canada and Mexico. We
Okay.
actually have a factory in Mexico,
Okay.
although we're headquartered here in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look at some of the similarities and some of the differences in what you do, what are some of
Mhm.
the key project management things that you need to be watching in these regulated industries where we talk about could be things changing or other problems? What are some of the things that people might overlook that can really turn into problems?
Well, um, in the printed circuit board world, we are governed by a set of standards, if you will, called the IPC standards. And there are three levels of standards based on what this circuit board is going to go into. So imagine, if this is a little circuit board that's going to go into a toy, it's not is not as demanding,
Hmm.
right? And so that's an IPC class 1. it's really not important that everything be absolutely perfect.
Mhm.
Now, if this is a printed circuit board that's going to go into some sort of customer device, say like
Mhm.
your phone or a TV, we really want it to be very good, but those things have a lifespan of maybe 2 or 3 years. So that's class 2.
Mhm.
Now, if this is going into a medical device or it's aerospace related, that has to be highly reliable, and that's going to be class 3. So
Mhm.
you're going to want the very, very highest quality. You're going to want this to be inspected super, super, super good. You're going to want only the best materials, the most rugged of all the electronics,
Mhm.
because it's critical
Yeah.
that operate the way it needs to operate.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want someone's pacemaker failing.
Yes. Yes. Good
So
example.
that's class 3. So in my previous life in aerospace, again, aerospace is class 3. I had the opportunity to help my supplier in their selection of a circuit board manufacturer. And so they told me, oh, we've selected this circuit board manufacturer. We're going to change our supplier. We're going to go to this company. I'm like, great. So we're all going to visit this little circuit board house in Oregon. And I'd never been there, and nobody had been there before. And my supplier had already placed a purchase order, and this company was ready to build the circuit boards. But it was incumbent upon me to validate
Mhm.
that they were up to the mark. And my team and I got there. We went to the conference room. I started reading out the requirements from the purchase order, my purchase order to my
Mhm.
supplier. And they said, oh no, we're not class 3. We're only class 2. I
Mhm.
said, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a non-starter then.
It's a non-starter. So it's a lovely facility you have here, but you can't do the job.
Yeah.
So because of the failure to validate that this shop could even meet the requirement, we just wasted 2 days
Yeah.
traveling back and forth to a place that couldn't do the job.
Yeah. That's a great example of, really taking your time to validate the suppliers are able to do what you do, and then understanding your critical compliance
Right.
needs and what you're doing. So as you're going on, what are some of the things now that you're seeing that are being developed to help get better in compliance, better in efficiency and project management? What's happening today?
Well, I think that one of the most efficient and simple tools that we can employ is just a checklist.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's not very hard. Just 1 second. Pardon me. I've been battling a cold for about 3 days.
Okay. All right.
That's I think that's just one of
Just a
the
good solid checklist
a
makes a
good
huge
solid
difference.
checklist, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Very
then
cool.
making sure that everyone involved understands what is the measurement, what is this, what is, I hate to say standard, but what is the measuring rod
Yeah.
that you're going to use. Because if they think that, if your supplier thinks that, oh, they're going to use this rod to measure me, and you come in and say, oh no, I'm using this rod,
Yeah.
and that's not fair to either of you. So I think it's really, really important that you make it clear from the outset how many hoops do they have to jump through, and just try and be fair about it, and make it clear that either they have to be ISO 9000 certified, or they just have to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
not.
It can't be considered unless they meet the requirements. That's what it is.
Yeah. What's the ante to get to play at this table?
Yep. Yep. Well, that's great, because it is really important. And you obviously have been in some pretty complex projects, some long-term projects that really require that kind of thinking. So if you're going to tell somebody today, what are some of the main things they want to look at if they're thinking about compliance and efficiency in project management? Where do they start? Or what are some key things, I should say?
Number one, understand the requirements.
Yeah.
Number two, documentation. So this is where I kind of have a little bit of heartburn with Agile. Agile is very, very light on documentation. And for me, I want to know, and really I'm in this position right now. If I'm stepping into the shoes of someone, who's had a project for a while, I want to be able to find the documentation to know what has been done up until this point. What are the expectations going forward? I don't want to have to repeat anything that's already been done. That's wasteful. So, making sure that your documentation is thoughtfully and clearly organized is very, very helpful.
Okay. All right.
And easily accessible with
Yeah.
those that have a need to know.
Yeah.
Because if you've got all of the documents stored on your hard drive, and then you go on vacation and no one else can access that information for a week or two, that's a disservice to your team.
Yes. Those are some great points. I mean, making sure you're well documented and it's easily accessible. I think those are, just like you said, having a good checklist, understand what you need, knowing what your compliance regulations are,
Yes.
and then making sure that you're well documented and you got access for your entire team. Those are some big things that will help you with your project for sure.
Because it almost always, at some point, you're going to be audited. If not by a certifying body, you could be audited by a customer. And they're going to want to see the evidence that you have these processes in place and you have these documents. You are following good quality standards and so forth. You've got a QMS in place. And not only do you have a process, you're following the process. Your employees know the process, they're following the process, and you have the required outputs.
Good stuff. Such good stuff. Well, Angela, I just want to thank you for coming by today and stop by and talking a little bit about project management and regulated manufacturing, and the compliance and efficiency things. I appreciate you stopping by, and I want to say thanks to all the people that were listening. We had Yazen stop by and drop a comment, a thumbs up on us. Thanks for doing that. I can see we got other people watching. Thanks for you being here today. Appreciate you stopping by today, Angela.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for showing up. And if you got in here late, get back to the beginning, because Angela has some significant project management experience. You want to connect with her on LinkedIn if you haven't already, because she is the person that I would go to for project management expertise. That's for sure. Thanks again, and we'll be back next week. Angela, hang out. We'll finish up offline.
Okay.